Hello again everybody, Matt here, and today I want to touch on a subject that I wonder how many of us will admit to, and that is the subject of nostalgia, but more than that, also the idea of sort of recreating your childhood a little bit, because in a way I think that's what all this is about. It's you know, for those of us especially who grew up with vinyl, it's again, there's such a sense of nostalgia, and it's really trying to bring back elements of our past and sort of clinging onto them a little bit. You know, I don't claim to speak for everybody, and obviously if you didn't grow up with vinyl, that's not going to be the case, but yeah, for me, nostalgia is a massive part of not just vinyl, but cassettes, and to a lesser extent CDs. But I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit, and tying into that, show some other items that I've kind of collected over the years. These are items that are either from or represent my childhood. And you know, so we're really going back, well, in some cases more than 30 years. I mean, I'm in my late 30s, and I've got, you know, a bit of a mishmash here of books, movies, a game which I'll show you as well. And so yeah, I just kind of wanted to just change gears a little bit, and just show you some of this stuff. So again, this is all stuff from my childhood. Let's start out with right here, the famous 5. Okay, these were books that I grew up with. They're by Enid Blyton, and there were 21 of these. I only have these 2. I got these in England last year. We went to a National Trust house, which is, for those of you not in the UK, the National Trust is a British organization that in many cases owns and operates / manages old historic buildings, grounds, gardens, that type of thing. And they've got I don't know how many locations they have. It's at least hundreds, I'm pretty sure of that. But we went to one, and they had a bookstore at this place, and I asked the lady, do you have any famous 5 books? And she said, yeah, I think I do have a couple. And she found these for me, and these are so nostalgic. So the famous 5, it's about a group of kids, and there's a dog, of course. The kids are all related. Let's see, well, 3 of them are siblings, and then their cousin, and they get up to adventures, a lot of kind of life or death adventures. You know, of course, it's completely unrealistic. I mean, like I said, there's 21 of these books. Nobody gets that unlucky 21 times, but these were terrific. You know, as a kid, I was probably, when I started reading these, I don't know, 8, 9 maybe, and I read them into maybe my very early teens, might be a little bit before that, maybe like 11 or 12, but I read them for a few years, and I used to have all 21 books as a kid. Now, they have been reissued, but the reissues, to my understanding, have a lot of corrections in them, which really means they've been made politically correct. They've you know, a lot of these were written decades and decades ago. I think well, let's have a look. I want to say like the 20s or the 30s or something. Let's see if there's a copyright notice in here. Actually, it's a little bit later than I thought. 1947 was when this one was first published. This is the 6th book in the series. But yeah, the reissues, they made them more politically correct. They took out a lot of stuff that would not have been considered offensive 70 plus years ago, but nowadays might be. And I don't know, that's a different subject. You know, I'm not big on sort of rewriting history like that. I think you learn from it and move on, but like I said, that's a different subject for a different time. So on the same subject of books though, I have these two Usborne puzzle adventures. Now these are wonderful books that I had both of these when I was a kid. One is Escape from Blood Castle and the other is The Curse of the Lost Idol. Now they're sort of graphic adventures, but they have puzzles to them. Like you have to try to spot things in the pictures and put words together, and I think there's some number puzzles and things like that. This one was always my favorite, Escape from Blood Castle. I always loved the illustrations in it. I mean, actually, to be honest with you, the illustrations aren't even that great, but I liked them as a kid, you know. And it's about this kid Boris, and he has to escape from this castle, and there's sort of a twist at the end of it. The page that I always remember, let me see if I can find it, is this one, where one of the cakes is poisoned and you have to figure out which one, and there's clues and things. But yeah, I don't know. I got these. These are not the same ones that I literally had as a kid. I bought them last year, I think, and it was just for nostalgia. Honestly, it's not like, you know, it's not like I'm going to find them challenging anymore, but yeah, just for nostalgia. That's it. Next one is a book, but it's more what's on the cover of the book that's nostalgic, which is the Acorn BBC Micro. Now, those of you in the UK, especially anyone who's perhaps over the age of, say, 30, 35, will probably recognize this and know what it is. This was a computer that was made by Acorn Computers, commissioned by the BBC, and I want to say at one time, like 80% of the schools in the UK had at least one of these computers, maybe more than that. And I was fortunate enough to go to at least two, if not three schools that all had them. And these are wonderful machines. 8-bit computers, 32K of RAM. It's the number is so small now that it's hard to kind of fathom it. But they were great for educational software. You could even network them, which was quite unusual for this type of computer back then. And this is how I first started programming. I was on one of these when I was 11 years old. And yeah, just again, I got it for nostalgia. I just wanted to flick through it, take a look at it. You know, yeah, like I said, I started programming on these when I was 11, and did get into a little bit of trouble with it a couple of times at school. Oh, what the heck, I'll tell you. So one time, actually more than a couple of times, I got into trouble. One time I made an email program that really exploited a security flaw in the network in order to work properly. And I then sort of deployed it. And people started using it, but people also started abusing it. And then the head IT teacher found out about it and kind of went ballistic. And not even so much at me, actually. It was more at the people who've been sending the abusive messages to each other. But still, I was ordered to take it down off the network, so I had to. That would have been in the early 90s, yeah. And what else? Oh, I hacked into the head IT teacher's account once as well and stole some utility stuff. And then later on, my cousin and I started using the utilities, and one of them was you could see anybody else's screen on the network, and you could also send people messages, and they had no way to stop the messages from coming in. Well, they could disconnect the computer from the network, I guess, and we happened to be doing it when a teacher was in one of these computer areas and saw all these messages coming in. my cousin and I were thrown out of the school. I wasn't expelled or anything, but we would. It was after school hours, and we were just told to get out. Yeah. So that's it for the books. Now I do have some British DVDs. The first one I somewhat foolishly bought because I haven't been able to watch it yet, and that is Men Behaving Badly. This is a complete collection. It's a sitcom. There are, I think, 6 or 7 seasons, something like that, and it has some similarities to Friends in a way, but it's a lot more crude than Friends. I mean, it was really a sitcom for adults in many ways. You know, they talked about alcohol, sex. You know, it was pretty adult. But it's a UK Region 2 DVD, so I have not been able to watch it here in the US. So that sucks. I've been thinking there's ways around it. I could buy a Region 2 DVD player, or I could buy a multi-region, you know, like a Region 3 DVD player. But you know, we'll see. This is the only UK one I have, so I'm not in any huge rush to do that. I just got these. I got these last week, and I was thrilled to find these in a Savers thrift store. And that is all 4 seasons of Blackadder. This is also a sitcom. It stars Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean. We're going to see him in just a minute, actually. And yeah, I used to like this as a kid. I don't think I've ever watched the whole thing all the way through. I'm sure I haven't. I remember watching bits of it when I was a kid. I was probably a little bit young for it when I watched it, because I remember being like 9 or 10. But it's a lot of the humor is pretty adult. So yeah, these were $3 each, so $12. But I had a 30% discount coupon. So speaking of Mr. Bean, I also have these two, and these are Blackadder and everything else I'm going to show you is all Region 1 USA or North America. And yeah, these again, it's just it's nostalgia. I think we were given one of these. I think my brother-in-law gave us one, and the other one I'm not sure. I think we bought the other one maybe. But yeah, I love Mr. Bean. You've got to have a bit of Mr. Bean, right? You know, this is what I'm talking about, like the nostalgia. And also, you know, I live in the US, I'm from the UK, so it's sort of, it gives me the ability to have a little piece of home, away from home type of thing, you know what I mean? I also have here 2 Monty Python DVDs. I have Meaning of Life and The Holy Grail. Very cool. And I'm going to make a confession. I haven't watched either of them. I haven't. Sacrilegious to some people, I know, because Monty Python has a pretty big fan base, but I haven't seen either of these. And well, I tell a lie. I think I have seen The Holy Grail when I was like a teenager, but I haven't seen these actual DVDs. So I must do that sometime. I also have the first season of Upstairs Downstairs. That is a British drama series from the 1970s. I'm trying to see if there's a date on here. 1971/72 it says. So yeah, there we go. This was also a thrift store find. You know, I actually, that's one of the main things I look for. When I look at DVDs in thrift stores, I'm looking for British shows like that. And yeah, it's good stuff. I haven't watched all of it, but I've watched some of it. And then this is another recent find from, I don't know, a few weeks ago. All 6 seasons of Allo, Allo. This is another British sitcom. There we go, all of them. Found all of these in, it was either a Goodwill or a Savers. I think it was Savers here in Riverside. And one of them still sealed, actually. The season 6 is still sealed. But yeah, again, these were $2 or $3 each. And all but one of them actually are 2-disc sets as well. And I was too young to have seen this when it started, because it started in the early to mid 80s. I was only like 6 years old when it first started, but I do remember the later seasons when I was a little bit older, like 9 or 10, and I remember watching it. I used to love this show, and you know, it's kind of aged horribly, I'm going to be honest. It has, but again, it's so nostalgic, and I just, you know, had to get it. Couldn't leave all those sitting there. They were calling to me. And then finally, changing sort of changing formats completely. I have a board game to show you. I have a few British board games. I'm just going to show you one, just to kind of wrap things up more quickly. But yeah, I used to love playing board games as a kid, and some of my favorites were Hotel, which I do have. I was going to show that, but that's okay. It's at the bottom of the cupboard. It would be take a while to fish it out. Obviously the British version of Monopoly. Careers, I have that too, but I have the US version, but it's almost identical to the British one. And my probably all-time favorite board game was, let me get a hold of it here, Heroquest. Yeah. This is essentially a lightweight version of Dungeons and Dragons, which is not something I've ever gotten into. I've never been into like role-playing stuff, not really. There's the back of the box. Now, Heroquest is just a wonderful game. You can play with up to 5 people. You need at least 2, but you can play with up to 5. It tends to be better if you do have at least 3 or 4. One person is the like the, I think they call it either the dungeon master or the dungeon keeper or something. That's the person that's in control of the game board. The other people play the heroes, so you have a barbarian, a wizard, a dwarf, and an elf, and they all have different skills. And it's yeah, it was considered at the time to be a good introduction into kind of a Dungeons and Dragons light is really what it was referred to as. A similar idea. It's turn-based. You have attack points and defense points, and you know, there's things like traps and treasures, and you don't see the layout of it's done by line of sight. So if you're looking down a corridor, you'll be able to see everything in that corridor and up until an obstacle. So for example, a rock fall or something. If you open a door and go into a room, well, you can see everything now that's in that room, except for hidden traps. But and you know, if there's monsters in there, then they might attack you. You can attack them, and etc., etc. And there's spells and things, and we used to spend hours. It was myself, my brother, and 2 or 3 friends of ours. We used to spend hours playing this game, and that was probably when I would guess 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And you know, like most games when you're a kid, you kind of lose interest a little bit, and I don't know what happened to it. I had these expansion sets for it too. Those expansion sets go for a lot of money now, so I kind of wish I still had it. This one I had to buy on eBay. You don't even want to know what I paid for it in dollars. My wife brings it up occasionally because we've never played it. I got it purely for nostalgia. I'd like to play it at some point, you know, if there were maybe a couple of people who were interested, but I think it costs somewhere with the dollar conversion around $120. This does have a few extra pieces in it, but it doesn't officially have any of the expansions at all. It's just the main game. But you can make your own maps for it as well. I used to spend hours doing that too, making my own Heroquest map. So yeah, that's a little insight into some of my nerdy childhood past right there. But yeah, like I was saying, I think that a lot of this stuff too, the records, the collecting, the vinyl, it's you know, how many of us have bought something not because we really liked it? If we were really honest with ourselves, we bought it because it held a memory. It was something we had as a kid, and I've done that with a number of records. I really have. And same thing with like cassettes, you know. I know objectively cassettes don't sound as good as vinyl or CD, but they're nostalgic, you know. I went through a period of several years as a kid where I was all about the tapes. It was my in-between period, between vinyl and CD. I was collecting and listening to tapes almost exclusively because you know, vinyl really started to die out in the 80s, particularly towards the end of the 80s, and whereas tapes kind of were still strong. And you know, my mother was a single mother. We didn't have a lot of money, and you know, so a CD player was out of the question. I didn't get a CD player until I was 14. My 14th birthday, I got a CD player. From my parents, I think, and it was, I mean, they weren't together, but it was like a joint gift still, so that was nice. But you know, and I've had CD players ever since, pretty much non-stop. But yeah, no, I didn't have one till I was 14, so until that point it was all about vinyl and then cassettes, and you know, that's a big part of it for me, because I'm you know, I'm pretty a pretty tactile person too. I like to be able to touch the object, the record in this case, and the interaction you get with it physically. You know, the I don't know, even like the smells. You know what I mean? You know, the sort of especially if it's a used record. You know, the kind of musty smell, which half the time is probably mold, but you know, whatever. And yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody, show a few non-music things that are from my childhood, but still come from the same place that a lot of my music, particularly vinyl collecting taste, come from. So thanks as always, everybody, for watching. Appreciate the comments, appreciate the subscriptions, and until next time, bye bye.